Well, greetings. Welcome to our webinar, Why Boarding Schools and Tapping into Your Child's Potential. My name is Jeff Leahy, and I am in Carbondale, Colorado. A little snowy here, and this was our first day back from school after a long winter break. And so hopefully everyone had a real nice holiday season, and they're looking forward to this 1-hour webinar. We have a really great group of panelists. And we are just also grateful for you taking the time to join us this evening to learn a little bit more about boarding schools and the boarding school landscape. This group of panelists comes from all over the United States. They represent a very diverse group of schools, and they ultimately are located from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And so we've got the whole span of the United States available to you this evening. The way this will work is you will go to the bottom of your screen, and you will see, if you toggle your mouse, you'll see at the bottom of the screen a Q and A box, and that will give you an opportunity to send us questions that we can ask of our panelists. You will find that this group of educators, they're experienced school leaders, and they are individuals who have really devoted their professional careers to the growth and education and health and well-being of young adults. So I think you're going to leave tonight's session with a really complete understanding of what it means to attend a boarding school and the powerful experience it can be as you embark on your educational journey. A few things that I want you to know: that if we don't get through every question over the course of this hour, you have our attention. We will follow up with every question that's asked and make sure that you get all the information that you need when you're exploring this option. And if this webinar, for whatever reason, prompts some additional questions, at the end of this webinar, you're going to find my contact information as well as others on the panelists. And you are welcome to contact us and ask any questions that you might have in addition to the ones that we cover this evening. So we're just really grateful for the honor and the opportunity to hear from all of you and to just really share some of the great things about the boarding school industry and the experience that your son or daughter or a student might have. So what we'll do is introduce the panelists, and then after we're done with that, Sheila Mitchell from the Association of Boarding Schools. They are our industry association. She will talk a little bit more about the Ready for More communication. And certainly I think that if you want to know more about independent schools, Sheila will certainly be there and available to you at any point after this webinar. Just a little bit to share with you before we get to the introductions. This is the first of 2 webinars the Association of Boarding Schools is doing. The second one is going to take place in 1 week from today at 7 p.m. Eastern Mountain Time. So, Eastern Standard Time, sorry, I apologize. So now let's move on to our introductions, and we are going to start with Anthony Scrow, who is the head of the Asheville School over in North Carolina. Anthony?
Good evening. I am Anthony Scrow, and I'm the head of school at Asheville School. We are located in the western mountains of North Carolina. We're a school that was founded in 1903, and we serve boys and girls in grades 9 through 12, and we are 85% boarding, and we have a very small 15% of our students are day students. This is my 25th year in boarding. I started out as a boarding student and actually started out as a boarding student at Asheville School. So I'm an alumnus of the school which I currently head. I have served at 2 other schools, Raven Gap-Nakuchi School, which is a boarding school in North Georgia. Was head of school there for 8 years, and then prior to that was spent 12 years as the assistant head at Woodbury Forest, which is a boys' school in Virginia. Asheville School is a tremendously interesting school. We're located, as I said, in the western North Carolina mountains, but we are actually an urban school. We are located in the city of Asheville, which is a bit unusual, and we're located on 500 acres in the city. So when you're on our campus, it feels very pastoral, but you walk off our campus and you are in really an urban setting with all of the benefits of a city like Asheville. One of the hallmarks of Asheville School is the fact that we were founded in 1903 and that we have a very strong connection to the city. The people who built the Vanderbilt's home, the Biltmore House, also designed and worked on the campus and the grounds of Asheville School. So we have a strong connection to the city. Our academic programs are a traditional college preparatory program, but we also have programs in STEM and a particularly robust outdoor program utilizing the beautiful mountains and the surroundings that we are in. Like most boarding schools, we have an arts program and an athletic program. And we also highlight our program in the sense that we are one of the few boarding schools in the United States where all of our students are in single rooms. And so we don't, and that has been a tradition since the very founding of the school. So we don't believe philosophically that we want to have our students worrying about the social aspects of what dorm life might be like. We give them the space to have their own room and to kind of separate when they want to separate. And we encourage them to spend time in the common room and those types of things in order to have social interaction. But we are your traditional boarding school, and we are deliberately small and very excited to be with you all tonight.
Thanks, Anthony. Now let's move over to Connecticut, and we have Jody Soja, head of school of Indian Mountain.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I think here in Litchfield County, we're having some connection issues, so hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Jody Soja. I'm the head of Indian Mountain School. I really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight to learn more about our schools. Indian Mountain School is a junior boarding school, which is a little bit different than the schools that my other colleagues are from here this evening. Junior boarding school means that we end in 9th grade. So we specialize in middle grades boarding. There are 10 schools like us in the country. 4 of those are single gender, all boys schools, and the other 6 are co-ed. Most of us are located in New England. IMS is a pre-K through grade 9 boarding and day school. Our boarding program begins in 6th grade, and we're located in Lakeville, Connecticut, just about 2 hours north of New York City. I've been associated with Indian Mountain School since 1999 when I began my teaching career here. And I was here for 10 years and then left for 6 years to work in Washington, D.C. and returned as head in 2015. We have roughly 100 boarding students here, even though we're a junior boarding school. We represent 13 different countries and 9 states in the US, so we have a really intentionally diverse boarding community here at IMS. And because we only have middle school boarders, we hire faculty who really specialize in this developmental stage of students' lives and are able to focus on where they are developmentally. Schools like ours are pre-preparatory schools in that we are helping to get students ready to go on to secondary boarding schools generally. I would say most of our students will leave Indian Mountain and attend other boarding schools like many that you'll hear from tonight. A small handful of students will go back to their local independent day schools or schools closer to where they come from. A little bit about our school. We were founded in 1922 by Francis Riggs, who believed that the way to avoid the horrors of events like World War I was through education. And so it's really important to us that our academic program is relevant and that we're asking students to tackle big ideas. Often middle school students are, I think, underestimated in their capacity to tackle big challenges, and we ask our students to do that every day. Mr. Riggs also believed very much in outdoor education and a connection to the natural environment. We continue that tradition today. We have 600 acres here in Lakeville. We make good use of our mountain. We have a ropes course. All of our students go on backpacking trips. And we also believe in service to the community, both local community, but perhaps more importantly, our own school community. Students are asked to play an active role on campus, and we believe everybody has something to contribute. Thanks so much for listening about Indian Mountain School.
Thanks, Jody. Now let's welcome Laura Danforth, head of school of the Master School in New York.
Hello, everyone. As Jeff said, I'm Laura Danforth, the proud head of school at the Master School in Dobbs Ferry, New York. I've been doing this work in boarding schools for 34 and a half years right now. And although I was a public school kid, I was very lucky that I was at a hiring fair right out of grad school, and a dean of students at St. Paul School, where I think you'll hear about that school tonight, tapped me on the shoulder and said, come be our school counselor. And I really got into the field because I loved being around kids. And I was counseling, and I coached 3 seasons. I lived and worked in a dorm, and I taught, and I loved it. And I have never looked back. So being the public school kid that I was, I know, I think for me firsthand, what a boarding school can offer. My 3 kids have benefited from boarding schools. This is my 8th school, and for me, all roads have led to this wonderful school. The Master School in Dobbs Ferry, we're about a 30-minute train ride north from downtown New York City, downtown Manhattan. We're right on the Hudson River. We have about 100 acres right here on campus, and about 20 buildings. We have 500 students in the high school. We do start in 5th grade. We're 5th through 12th grade, but we have boarders in 9th through 12th grade. We have, and most of our faculty live here on campus in the dorms and on faculty in faculty housing. We have 2 boarding options here at Masters. We have a 7-day boarding program and a 5-day boarding program. The 5-day boarding program usually attracts families that are within an hour or 2 from campus. Because we're the closest boarding school from New York City, there is quite a bit of traffic from New York up to Dobbs Ferry. So it really works for the families in New York, over the Tappan Zee Bridge and into Connecticut and Massachusetts. Our 7-day program is very robust, including lots of programming all over New York City, and we really take advantage of the city, including internships, museums, Broadway shows, professional athletic events, countless community service opportunities. Also with our 7-day boarding program, we offer 3 college trips a year to Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., which our students take advantage of. It's all a part of our tuition. We are open during Thanksgiving break. So for those who travel far away, we do represent 31 different countries and 15 states. And so we do stay open for our 10-day Thanksgiving vacation, which is chaperoned by several of our faculty members, and they do trips during that time as well. We offer also programs like driver's education. We offer cooking classes, life skill classes. A lot of these programs, the schools that you'll hear from tonight, they also offer them, as well as swimming lessons. We have a swimming graduation requirement because I want to make sure that everyone knows how to swim before they go out into the world. I want to just talk for 15 seconds about the last sentence of our mission statement, which is that we encourage our students to be a power for good in the world. And we talk a lot about that, both formally and informally, about what that means to us, what it means to be a power for good in the world. And I'm happy to talk more about that. Our teaching methodology is a seminar style teaching. We have 12 to 14 students in a class around an oval table in all of our classes. We don't have desks in our rooms. And our signature programs at Masters, we have 3 very strong signature programs along with a very traditional academic program. We have an innovation and an entrepreneurship program called the IEC. The C stands for center. We have a wonderful center here. We have an ethical leadership program, and we have a global studies program, which we have a lot of exchange workshops and programs with schools from around the world. We have outstanding students, like all students out there, and one of our messages that we preach all the time is that it's important that students bring all of who they are to our campus, that we don't want anyone to leave a part of who they are at home. We want them here on campus. So I will stop now and look forward to any of your questions. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Laura. And well, we're going to head all the way out to the West Coast and meet Meg Bradley, head of school at Santa Catalina.
Good evening, all. I am delighted to be here, and thanks so much for joining us. Just by way of background, graduating from an all-girls high school literally changed my life. I started my career at an independent day school outside of New Orleans, and then decided, I really wanted to try out what it was like to be in a boarding school community. And we moved to California, to the Cates School. And throughout my 18 years there, I witnessed the incredible growth afforded to students who live and study in a boarding school. It is incredible. And what a highlight of my career to now be the head of Santa Catalina. And we're sort of unusual. We're an all-girls, independent Catholic boarding and day school located in Monterey, California. We're near San Francisco. And we coincidentally, like many of our schools on beautiful campuses, Catalina was selected by Architectural Digest as one of the most beautiful private schools in California. So that's lovely. We are also the largest girls boarding program west of the Mississippi. And by intentional design, we inspire our young women to be their authentic selves. As a result, these kids flourish. They flourish emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, physically, and as thoughtful, bold, impactful women. Catalina's culture, therefore, is really one of our daily life is rooted in kindness and respect. We've got 216 girls in our high school. We also have a co-ed day school for the lower school. And like my colleagues, boarding schools develop distinguished programs in service of our students and mission-centric. For example, at Catalina, we have a 3-year marine ecology research program culminating in students presenting their research at a public scientific forum. We have a performing and visual arts program that lands students in sought-after colleges in these programs to further develop their craft. And an athletic program with 41 league titles over 10 years. This, at the same time, Catalina regularly receives the Sportsmanship Award. We're pretty graceful champions. For students, a boarding school experience is an accentuator. Catalina young women live and study in a culture of achievement, in a truly supportive environment where each student discovers her potential. And what boarding schools offer today is more relevant than ever, in my opinion. It's an education beyond the class day in a diverse and caring community where our students are surrounded by dedicated faculty. And what we like to tell our parents is expect the unexpected. Catalina girls have social lives. They champion the success of their peers. They're truly nice kids with a great sense of humor. I applaud you parents who are listening for the research that you're doing about the benefits of boarding school, as it will help inform your decision for the best school for your child. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Meg. Now let's meet Kathy Giles, head of the St. Paul School in Concord, New Hampshire. Kathy?
Well, thanks so much. And I'm sitting here in frosty Concord, New Hampshire, getting more fired up than ever after 35 years in boarding schools about the great opportunities that my colleagues are articulating. So I'll do my best to add a little bit. And I think following up a little bit on what Meg was just saying, it's a wonderful opportunity for parents to get a sense of the diversity of our schools, but these common denominators of boarding schools really are, from my perspective, learning to do hard things well. We, in a caring, ethical school community that treats the whole child, that isn't tied up with exams or numbers, that isn't in which teachers are not overwhelmed by teaching 125 kids a day or 30 kids in a classroom, in which each of our young people feel known and needed in an intense and intimate community. These experiences really are transformative. And like Laura, I'm a public school kid, but I'm married to a boarding school kid. And our 3 children benefited so much from growing up at Groton School, where I started my career and worked for 18 years, teaching, coaching, college advising, academic deaning, all of that. And then moving on to Middlesex School, where we spent 16 wonderful years where I was the head of school. My husband taught math at the Fenn School, a local boys' school for grades 4 through 9. And then here at St. Paul School, where we are in our first year, but loving this community of 530 students set on an exquisite natural campus of 2,000 plus acres in Concord, New Hampshire. St. Paul School was founded in 1856 in a little bit of an offset to the Industrial Revolution, at a time where people were worried about losing that connection with the natural world that inspired and filled life with peace and meaning and understanding. So we're a fully residential boarding school, which might differentiate us from other folks talking tonight. Fully residential in that all of our students live on campus and all of our faculty members live on campus. So we are at St. Paul's School all in. 4 days a week, we start at chapel. We are rooted in the Episcopal tradition, but in the modern Episcopal tradition of equity, inclusivity, diversity, and justice for people. So while we love to start our day with some reflection and some time working on our spiritual selves, that's the definition of spiritual selves is broad, inclusive, and modern at St. Paul's School. But again, getting back to this idea of learning to do hard things well, it's been my experience in boarding schools over now, like Laura, 35 years, that's the most important work we do. Sometimes that's physics. Sometimes that's working out confusion about a grade with a teacher. Sometimes that is working out a problem in the common room or on a team or with a roommate. But learning to do hard things well at a young age transforms what young people think is possible for their lives. And that transformative element, that coming early into one's sense of responsibility for the person one becomes, that seems to me to be the secret of unlocking the universe for our kids. So at boarding schools, that's job one. We all think big, and we help our students believe that anything really is possible in their lives. At St. Paul's School, we welcome students from 40 states in the US and 18 foreign countries. We have a 5-to-1 student-faculty ratio. Our student body this year is 41% students of color, and our faculty is 30% people of color. So we're a diverse community that enjoys learning from each other. And as we're thinking about the benefits of boarding school in 2020, there has never really been a better time to grow up in a global village, in a place where we learn at a very young age that people can not be like us, but still like us, and that we can still like them. And as we look around in our world today, the understanding of what ties us together as in common as humans is so much more important than the constant commentary on what drives us apart. In terms of the special programs that St. Paul's School offers, the humanities program is a super strong, thriving hallmark of our education. We really do believe that the work of being good humans is front and center in all of our lives. And one of the strategic questions that our faculty and our board starting to discuss is this role of humanity in the artificial intelligence, machine learning world. If the studies are going to show that the only thing that humans are better at is being humans than machines, then how are we going to change the way we educate our students to be better, stronger humans for the benefit of humanity and for the world? That's a really important question. And even though, as most of us on the call tonight define ourselves as traditional college preparatory curricula, we do also, as one of the panelists said earlier, care a lot about being relevant. We're old schools, but we're old schools who are committed to being strong, good schools for the present and future of our students. So the humanities program at St. Paul School is a double course. It encompasses literature, history, religion, art history, a number of these areas that go into the way that humans find and make meaning in our lives. We work hard on it. We also work equally hard on the STEM disciplines and have a couple of capstone opportunities in programs like computer science and robotics, but also in advanced science and engineering. We also offer the same kind of opportunities in a classical studies honors program, because again, the study of Latin and Greek is very much alive in the lively minds of good thinkers. So the programs are deep, the programs are strong. Athletics, arts, very important ways for children to build out their full selves. And if there's a sort of an image for St. Paul's education that I'd like to leave you with, when you look at the crest that appears on your screen, you're going to see scholarship, service, and sacrifice. Those are those three words. But at St. Paul's School in 2020, we're talking about SPS 360. Scholarship, leadership, character, community. Scholarship, leadership, character, community. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
And finally, we have Chris Gannon, head of St. Stephen's Episcopal School in Austin, Texas. Chris?
Good evening. Thank you, Jeff. My name is Chris Gannon, and I'm the head of school at St. Stephen's Episcopal School in Austin, Texas. St. Stephen's is a school for 6th through 12th grade students. We're a boarding and day school community. Our boarding program begins in 8th grade when we accept 10 boarding students. And then in 9th through 12th grades, we have about 40 or 45 boarding students in each of those grade levels. So overall, we have 685 students, and 185 of those students are boarding students. Our campus is 374 acres, and we're located just outside of Austin, Texas, in the Texas Hill Country. So appreciate the comments from my colleagues on the panel about what differentiates boarding schools. And what I'll just speak to quickly so we can get to the questions and answers is our founder created this school and dedicated it to the recovery of humans. Bishop Hines had just seen the horrors of World War I and World War II and believed that a better future would be dependent on creating a school community founded on Christian beliefs, but dedicated, as Kathy was talking about in the Episcopal tradition, equity and inclusion and justice. So St. Stephen's was the first boarding school in the South to integrate, and the first co-ed Episcopal boarding school in the country. So from our founding in 1950, we have a strong commitment to equity and inclusion and justice. And in terms of, certainly we have, like the other schools represented tonight, strong academics, strong fine arts, and strong athletic programs. I think one of the ways St. Stephen's differentiates itself and one of the sources of pride for our community is our commitment to our Episcopal identity. And I think I'll just mention that we worship together 4 days a week in daily chapel. And my favorite line from the school prayer is, "Empower us to make a difference in the world with open minds, open hearts, and open doors." And so in that spirit, we are very much a college prep school, but we're also a life prep school. And I think part of what boarding schools do so well is create communities where young people can develop meaningful and transformative relationships with their peers, as well as with the adults on campus. And then through those relationships, become inspired to make a difference in the world. So with that, I'll stop. I think Sheila's going to talk next and talk about the Association of Boarding Schools, and then we'll have a chance to answer some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Before we turn it over to Sheila, I'm just going to take an opportunity to share a little bit about Colorado Rocky Mountain School. We're a small school of 160 students from 14 different nations, located just about 40 minutes from Aspen, Colorado. And if that has you thinking that we do a lot of outdoor activities, you would be right. We'll be out on the ski slopes tomorrow afternoon and on Thursday afternoon. It's kind of how we enjoy the winter season with all this snow up here in the high country. We also have mountain biking, kayaking, and rock climbing. And so we're doing a lot of things just regionally because we just have a tremendous athletic center to enjoy, just being in the middle of the Colorado Rocky Mountains. Our students will all show up at the beginning of the school year, and we have them do a 10-day outdoor orientation where they'll spend 3 days doing service work and then 7 days backpacking. The backpacking is a lot like what you would experience at an Outward Bound type of a program or a National Outdoor Leadership style programming, where they spend a lot of time thinking and talking about values and philosophy and what their goals are for the school year. But the main outcome of it all is that when they come back onto campus and walk into that dining hall, there are familiar faces sitting at all the tables, and they feel as though they're already a member of the school community. So that's kind of how we orient our students. We don't have any expectation around having previous experience, so don't be thinking that you have to have a lot of expertise in anything in the outdoors. I would say about 98% of our students come to us with no experience prior to being at Colorado Rocky Mountain School. But that kind of is pervasive now within our whole school culture, that we recognize that we're all first-time learners in just about any experience, whether that is reading a book for the first time or studying calculus, or learning a language, or playing music. And so the students, as a result, are extraordinarily supportive of each other, kind, caring, and they just understand what it means to be a little bit uncomfortable with that first time doing anything in life. If I've got you thinking that we are only an outdoor program, then I've misled you. We are a college prep school. We do the standard classes that pretty much you're going to see anywhere else. Our students, 100% of them, are going to graduate and go on to a 4-year college or university. We have a really deep and broad art program that features glass blowing and blacksmithing, a phenomenal music program. And in addition to that, we have a garden that our students work in that has produced as much as 30,000 pounds of fresh vegetables and fruits. So that ultimately feeds our community. And I will share with you that I don't think I've bought onions in 4 years as a result of all of this. So there's a lot going on here. As you've already heard from some of the panelists, I too was a product of a public school education and sent both my 2 children to a boarding school. They are far more capable, competent, and prepared for college and beyond in a way that I never could have imagined for myself. And I think in large part, that is because of the relationships that they have had with adults during their time here. But in addition to that, the nice thing about a boarding school is that it demands of you that you live your values and you know yourself beyond just 3 p.m. So it's not an 8 a.m. check-in and a 3 p.m. check-out experience. It is embracing an entire culture where collectively we're working towards common goals, we have common beliefs and aspirations. And as a result, both my children have really known themselves and known what they stood for, what they value, what their non-negotiables are in their life, again, in a way that I never could have comprehended for myself, whether I was at middle school or at high school. It has just been transformative for them. And I think it has been the best decision that I've made as a parent, having them be a part of a learning community like a boarding school. So with that, why don't I turn it over to you, Sheila, and you can talk a little bit about the Ready for More program.
Thank you, Jeff. And for all of us at the Association of Boarding Schools, which we abbreviate as TABS, I just want to extend a very warm welcome. We have 30 families joining us this evening, and we are so grateful that you've set aside time to learn more about boarding school and all of our amazing schools. We have over 200 schools in the US and Canada. Our website is called readyformore.com, where we have tons of resources. We have tools to help you find the best school for you and for your child, and we hope that you'll take advantage of that. After the webinar, I'll be emailing you the recording and a slide deck so that you have all of the contact information you may need, as well as my contact information. So I'd love to encourage you all to submit questions. This is a pretty rare opportunity to talk to our school leaders, and you are able to ask any questions you like. If you hover your mouse at the bottom of the screen where you see our pictures, you will see a Q&A box, and you are able to type in your question there. There's also a chat box there, and you just click on it and submit your question. I believe that we already have a few questions that we'll get started with, so please post your question, and Jeff will read the question and assign it to one of our heads of school. So thank you again for making the time to be with us this evening.
Okay, so our first question we're going to send to Anthony and Jody, and it's about campus safety. Jerry wants to know, how do you keep students safe on your campus? So Anthony, do you want to start off?
So safety is obviously our first and primary concern. Since we are a boarding school located in an urban setting, we are very thoughtful about all of those things. All of our dorms have locks on them. We have pass cards to get into them. Our academic buildings have pass cards that you have to use to lock in and out. We have 24-hour gate protection on our campus, and we are very thoughtful to have a roving security guard all over campus. I think, speaking for everyone in the industry, we are constantly conscious of the fact that safety is the first concern, and all of my colleagues, I think, have plans for all kinds of extenuating circumstances that might occur on their campus. Jody?
Thanks, Anthony. Unlike Asheville School, we are a very rural school, not near a city at all, and even a distance from our local town. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic for us, but like probably most schools in the country these days, all of our buildings are locked both during the academic day and off school hours, which only people at school have access to those buildings. Because we're junior boarding and our students are all much younger, faculty are always present with the kids. So if adults are on duty, they are physically in the common room with the students. The dorms are not open during the day. So for us, students are either in the main school building in their academic classes, or they're supervised in the dormitory after sports practices, before dinner, during study hall, and after study hall before bedtime. And adults are always present in the building. Several of our dorms, most of our dorms have alarms, especially if they are in close proximity to the road. So like all of our schools here, we take the safety and security of our students really seriously. And again, for us, the most important thing as a junior boarding school is just the physical presence of lots of adults.
Great, thanks, Jody. So Meg and Laura, we have a great question from an international student. Jennifer is asking if you could elaborate on requirements for international students. Laura, Meg, do you want to start with that? That'd be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Basically, we want an international student to really experience our program It's just a wonderful way to feel if that's a really good fit for them. So one of the things that we really invite is for international students to come visit our campus. I think that's probably true for most boarding schools. We do not offer an ESL program at Catalina, so the ability to speak and write in English is really an important component of being here. And then it is very much a standard application process plus the visit. Laura?
Thanks, Meg. I would say the same thing. We also do not have we do not have an ESL program, but we do have a first-year program where you can spend a little extra time with your teachers if you're learning English. We do require the TOEFL, and as I said in my intro, we represent 31 different countries, so we have kids from all around the world, but they do need to kind of go right into the program, right into the academic program. We invite any student, any family to come for an interview and to see the campus and to ask all the important questions. And I think probably the same is true with the rest of the schools that are on the panel this evening.
Oh, great, Laura. Thank you so much. And Kathy, we're just going to go to you with this question. It just has to do with improving the odds of getting into college. And the question, it's an anonymous author, is asking, are these schools focused on improving odds of college admission or the likelihood of success in college? So maybe you could take that one for us.
We all are focused on helping our students lay the groundwork for lives full of great choices and great options. The best way to be successful at anything, whether it's getting into college or any, getting anything else that one wants in life, is by developing the skills of persistence and discipline and hard work and courage and curiosity. In those ways, we do everything we can around those wonderful seminar tables with 10 to 14 kids to encourage kids to grow in the ways that colleges are going to respect, both on an admissions basis and frankly in a community basis. Students who go to boarding schools understand how to manage syllabi. They understand how to get their homework done without their parents sitting there forcing them to do it. They also understand the value of seeking out adults in their lives, going to office hours, going for extra help, realizing that you can go talk to a teacher about something that interests you, that you're curious about, that you might not be getting graded on, that might not be part of the assignment or the syllabus or the expectations. So the wonderful way that we prepare kids for success in college and beyond is by making learning together in a community big fun and the best way to grow up and the best way to live. And yes, our kids get the benefit of excellent college guidance. They get the benefit at all of our schools of academic and counseling staffs that help with course selection, that help with test sign up, that give advice on test preparation, that, as Laura was saying, some of our schools offer trips to visit colleges. We want our students to find the great next steps, plural, because I think I am comfortable speaking for all of us in saying that for students who come into this wonderful awareness of themselves early, the world is really full of opportunities. It's not just one path to college. And again, all of these same skills that our kids are picking up at age 14, 15, 16 are the ones that help them hit the ground running in college. They know how to go to meals. They know how to get their laundry done. They know how to buy their books. They know how to get those papers in. They're simply way ahead of the game. But our focus really is on helping these kids get, when we hand them their diploma, we want them to see the world full of choices and options.
Well, thanks so much, Kathy. That was a great answer. And Chris, we have a question that is a multi-part question. I'm going to send the first half to you, and then we're going to let all the panelists respond to the second part of it. The first part really just has to do with the type of students that we have on our campuses. The question is, are many children from wealthy families or have behavior challenges at home? And is that why they're at our schools?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I think that question comes out of some old stereotypes about boarding schools in this country. And I will say, I didn't explain this earlier, but this is my first boarding school to work in, and this is my 4th year as the head of school here. And in my short time in boarding schools, I can tell you that those kind of stereotypes that existed about boarding school are really just that, kind of flawed stereotypes. St. Stephen's has a $29 million operating budget, and we dedicate over $4 million each year for financial assistance on a need base. So we work really carefully to craft our student body and to make sure that our experiences here on campus are accessible to students from all different economic levels. Another part of our admissions process has to do, we certainly look at character and citizenship and teacher recommendations. So when we're making admissions decisions, we're looking at first, do we think the student can be successful here academically? And then second, do we think that the student will contribute to community life, whether that's through involvement in different clubs or activities, whether that's taking on different leadership roles here on campus. And we're in a position, I know the other schools here are as well, where we have more qualified candidates than we have spots in our community. So we're a school that's certainly looking at character and demonstrated ability to live and learn in community in respectful ways. And those are, admissions requirements for our schools.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So the second part of this question has to do with students feeling homesick, they're away from their parents, and ultimately how we help with the transition away from home and into the boarding life of our schools. And so I thought that was such a great question for every single one of our panelists to have a chance to answer, that I thought we would just start it the same way we began our introductions, by starting with Anthony and giving him an opportunity. And then we'll go to Jody, Laura, Meg, Kathy, and Chris. And each one of you can explain how you deal with the homesickness, the transitions, and how you get students to really embrace the boarding school experience. So Anthony, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I remember very well being dropped off to boarding school and my parents leaving me there and going up onto dorm and being very nervous about what that was going to look like. And at Asheville School, we have seated meals on a regular basis. And so we, at lunch and dinner, we're connecting with students all the time. And I remember as a student, those opportunities immediately connected me to the community. And now as a leader in those schools, we spend a lot of time at the very beginning of school engaging kids in all kinds of activities that will introduce them to other students, that will introduce them to the faculty, that will form those connections that create our community. One of the things we do right off the bat is the first night we do a massive square dance with all 300 of our students, all 100 faculty members, all of their families, goes on for about 3.5 hours. And they're immediately connected into this community, making friends. And that's what gets kids over that hump. And if there's a student who has serious issues around homesickness, and every now and then there's one student who may really drag that along, we provide all kinds of counseling support on our campuses. I'll let somebody else take that from there.
Thanks, Anthony. I think actually, most people assume because we're junior boarding and our students are a lot younger, that they will really struggle with homesickness. I actually think the parents have a harder time than the kids usually. We hear more from parents who are missing their children than about homesick kids, but certainly it comes up from time to time. I think One of the things we do, we took a page out of camp playbook. With the first 2 weeks of school, students don't have any technology, no phones or iPads or personal laptops. They have to use an old-fashioned phone if they want to call home, which for some kids is an education in and of itself. But I think having both feet planted firmly at Indian Mountain School and not one foot in a home community and one foot here has really mitigated the homesickness that we saw a few years ago. That's been transformative. Plus, in the evening, you see kids outside playing kickball and foursquare and sitting on the swings and just having good old-fashioned kid fun together. It really has made that transition so much easier. And again, having dorm parents who are really present. Our 8th and 9th graders go on backpacking trips early in the year. All of our meals are seated, so kids quickly get to know each other. And again, we've got active counselors who are involved keeping their eyes out for kids and advisors. And really, we just keep them as busy as possible. And again, you'd be surprised at the number of parents whose chief complaint is, my child never calls home. What's wrong? And the answer is nothing. Everything's going well.
Thanks, Jody. I would echo exactly what the two of you said. It's usually the parents that are more sick for their child than the child being homesick. But when it does happen, we have lots of support in the dorm and out of the dorm. We have a very strong peer counseling program. We have 4 to 5 proctors in each dorm of 25 kids. And all of our dorm parents are trained with these issues. So like Anthony said, well, sorry, Anthony, I don't have a square dancing party the first weekend, but we have lots of other things that are more aligned with New York City. But we're all on campus, and even the handful of faculty that live off campus come on to campus often on the weekends and watch the kids in their games, in their performances. We have a lot of community events and picnics, and it's a lot of fun. So we rarely get homesickness here, and when it does happen, we're on it. So thank you.
Hi, at Catalina, you know, it's so interesting. We have a wonderful prefect program, which many of our schools have. And these seniors are just so phenomenal, welcoming in the students. And there's a real culture in boarding schools where the seniors teach the freshmen what it means to be a leader. And that goes from generation to generation. So if I talk to a woman from the 50s or a woman from 2018, her experience being welcomed into our community would be very similar. And then our wonderful Dean of Students does a fundatory program in which the boarding and day school students really have a couple of weeks of where there are these planned activities, and they're goofy. I mean, it's like going out bowling and doing wonderful things around the Monterey community, and they just have a wonderful time. And our partnership, like all the schools with our parents, to make sure that the parents know what's going on really does help with that. So really a nice transition.
Well, amen to all that. We have learned in all of our schools about the need for training our adults in child development. So the leadership of our older students, the culture of our school communities, and the present watchfulness of our adult communities go towards making those connections that help kids feel known and needed in our communities. But I want to pick something up on something that Jody said. We love busy kids. At boarding school, we love busy kids. Busy kids are happy kids. And so at all of our schools, we will say to these kids, put down your phone and play. Play your trumpet, play your violin, be in a play. Put down your phone and do real things that forge the real connections with people that make you feel good. The psychological research on teenagers is replete with the understanding that the key to adolescent good mental health and psychological well-being is good relationships with people who know me. And that's where boarding schools offer a really powerful advantage and wonderful opportunity for students. Put down your phone and play.
just to add on to what some of my colleagues have said, I think the keys to engaged and thriving students in boarding schools are very present adults who are trained and committed to supporting young people. And one of the phrases I often hear on campus is something like, Mr. Goodman doesn't just care about how well I do in history, he cares about how well I do in life. And so the connections that are forged, not just in the classroom, boy, that's just where it starts at a boarding school, but the connections that are forged, in theater programs or in service learning experiences or on class retreats. We keep our students active, we keep them engaged, and there's such a variety of opportunities for kids to be known and loved in this community. We have daily advisory, we have sit-down meals, and we have dorm parents that are connected after hours. And then each of our schools has programs where the faculty and the health teams and the administrators and the counselors will meet regularly to talk about our students, to make sure that they're well and thriving.
Well, great. Thanks, Chris. We had a question come in from Martine that asks about military-friendly boarding schools. And I know that we have at least 4 military schools in our association, but I thought maybe Sheila, if you could just share with the audience one more time, maybe some of the website access points that they could go to get a little more information about the different types of schools that are available. As I started off this webcast, I commented on that you're not going to find a more diverse set of schools for panelists that are joining us here this evening. And it's been great to hear the variety of different conversations. But if you could just point the audience to some places on the website that might help them find not just military schools, but other resources as well.
Sure, thank you, Jeff. And that's such a great question. So we do have 4 military emphasis schools within our membership of over 200 schools. And when you visit readyformore.com, you are able to either start by entering in the city in which you live and then start entering keywords into a keyword field. You might enter Austin, Texas, and then you might enter military. And that will generate a list of our schools that have that focus, whatever you're typing in. So again, we have lots of kinds of schools, and tonight we have some of those schools represented. We have all boys, all girls, co-ed, junior boarding, which is like Indian Mountain School, a school with middle school boarding. Military, we have religious, we have non-religious schools. So as you enter in keywords, you will generate a list. You will have abbreviated school profiles, which you may then click on to get a full school profile. And then you can directly contact the admissions department through that page. So we try to make it very easy for families to do their research and then reach out to all of our admissions departments at those schools directly. So again, readyformore.com, and start playing with the Find a School tool to discover schools that you may be interested in. You can also type in lacrosse, equestrian, robotics, any kind of programmatic terms that you're interested in as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sheila. And we are getting close to the end of the hour, so we have 2 more tasks to do. The first is just going to be open to whatever panelist feels strong about answering this question that's coming to us. And it really relates to the tension that sometimes parents are going to feel in sending their son or daughter away to a boarding school. So I'll ask that question in a second, but I'll give you all a chance to think through how you might want to advise a parent how to navigate that situation. And then we'll end with one more piece before we close off this hour. So the question is, what would be the best way for parents to communicate to their son or daughter that the boarding school is the best choice for that child without giving the child a feeling that they're being sent away or rejected? An example would be where maybe a divorce has already taken place and the the child is feeling already sensitive and now feels as though maybe they're being shipped off to a boarding school environment. So does anybody want to take that one on?
I'll just chime in very quickly, Jeff, and say, and then it'll be a short answer. Listen to your child. Listen to what their needs are. Most of the time, when you get a child onto one of our campuses, they will never look back. And if you say to your child, let's just try this, we're not going to make any decisions right now. Let's just try it and see what it feels like. You don't have to make any major decision right now, except let's go for a tour. Let's pick these 3 or 4 schools, and then just listen. That would be my advice.
I would say one thing to add on to that, as somebody who went to boarding school, I really feel like boarding school is the best gift that you can give a child. I think my parents made an enormous sacrifice financially and emotionally for me to go to boarding school, and the opportunity to have this kind of experience in education was remarkable, and I am so appreciative of what they did. So I would say to parents, you're giving your child an enormous gift.
Those are great answers, quite frankly. Meg, do you have another addition?
I was just going to say that I found in all my years in admission work that students will self-identify for those schools that they really feel that they have a place in. And it's often the student dragging the parent along because they found where it works. And so I really agree with Laura that give the student an opportunity to look at a few schools and really try it on, because they'll know.
Well, great. Well, this next question, why don't we send it to Kathy, Jody, and Chris? It has to do with how you even start to think about boarding school and where do you go? There's just so many options out there, so many different choices. So how do you go about even selecting a boarding school? So what is the best way to research boarding schools with so many available to us that are out there?
So I would start by giving another push for the Ready for More website. The website is designed to help families address these questions. But I'd also, again, picking up from Laura and Meg, this is a wonderful family decision about incredible opportunity. And it's a time where you really do get to talk with your child about the person that child wants to think about becoming and imagining being. What's important to you now, but where, what are the possible paths, and where can we look for those opportunities? Thinking about going to boarding school is about opening up the world to the world of possibilities to your children. So whether you're going on boardingschoolreview.com or using the tab resources or talking to friends, or as Sheila was saying, go to the website, put your town in, and look around at what might be easily accessible. Trying it on, as Meg said, is the best way to really become aware of what the possibilities might be.
Jeff, thanks for teeing it up for junior boarding school here, because that's what we do. Our business is helping kids find secondary school, so we can take that workload for you as parents. In terms of junior boarding, there's only, as I said, there's 10 of us. 6 of us are co-ed, so the field starts to narrow pretty quickly. But actually what we find is students, even some students who come to us for 1 year 9th grade, if they've looked at high schools and also junior boarding, they've said at the end of their 9th grade year at IMS that they know so much more about what types of programs they're looking for in secondary school, having spent a year away with some independence at junior boarding. So, but we start the process like I imagine many parents would, and in partnership with them for kids looking at secondary school, which is to ask kids what they're really interested in. Do they want to be at a big school or a small school? Do they want to be within a certain radius of home? Are there specific programs they're interested in? Do they want to make sure that a swimming team is available to them, or water polo? And quickly, I think the field starts to narrow. And then I fully believe that students need to go set foot on a campus and see what it feels like to be there, meet students, have conversations with the people who live and breathe there every day. And a lot of students just find those places that feel like a good fit to them once they've gone through that process.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would just add that starting at the TABS website is the great place to start. And then each of our schools works hard to represent our communities and highlight and showcase our communities on our own websites, and then reaching out to the admissions offices at our schools. And those are folks in our community whose job it is to explain our programs and explain our cultures and explain our communities. And then really the campus visit, if it's at all possible, is really vital. And I think that's when a student needs to ask himself or herself, can I imagine myself in this place with these people and being a part of these programs? And I'm a big believer in young people's intuition and their sense of comfort and their excitement, I hope. I think when students prospective students and parents step on our campuses and they get to meet other students and sit in on classes and attend theater performances or attend chapel or attend a sporting event, they catch the vibe of our communities.
And Sheila, did you have anything you'd like to add to any of that?
I would. Thanks, Jeff. So for families who might be considering a school across the country and a campus visit may not be feasible, please know that most of our schools have alum all over the country, and they will connect you with someone who's graduated from their school in your area. So if you are not able to go on a physical campus visit, which is always our first recommendation, you still may be able to have a really wonderful visit with someone who's very familiar with the school and can give you the full scoop on everything to expect from that school. So just know that our schools are very accustomed to doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say that word of mouth is so often the way people are finding our schools. And so one thing to do is to also just start asking around. And what are the sporting schools that people know that are already sending their children to those institutions, and they will speak frankly about the positive experiences that their students are having. So that would be another thing to do in terms of the research. We're at the end of the hour. We're actually a little beyond the end of the hour. But at the beginning of the hour, I mentioned that it was our first day of school today. And as part of that experience, we always welcome our parents back to campus on Saturday, Sunday evening with cookies and coffee, things of that nature. Just a gathering that is intended to ensure that everybody just feels welcome back, right? And it got me thinking about this really neat conversation that I had with Anthony Scrow a few months ago, where he just shared a tradition of having the entire school over to his house for Halloween. And so I thought it would be neat for all of us to just share a tradition that we've established or are establishing at our schools that really connects us with the students. I think one of the advantages of the boarding school life is the fact that we're all here together, living together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in the case of St. Paul's, we're all here together, which is a really unique experience. And so just having these opportunities for us to gather and get to know each other. There is no way I'm getting invited to a teenager Halloween party, but Anthony's figured it out. He's got all the teenagers coming over to his house. So Anthony, do you want to just start us off, if it's that tradition or a different tradition that you could share with our audience, and then we can go down through all the panelists and leave them with that. So Anthony, do you want to take over?
Sure. Yeah, we do a Halloween party at our house. We do it on the front yard. We have fire pits going. We order about 900 donuts. We have hot chocolate. We do bobbing for apples, all of that. And simultaneous to that, we have our home was built in 1910. The dorm next to ours was built in 1910 and has one of the spookiest basements in the world. And so we also have the seniors running a haunted house down there. And it's great fun. Faculty are going through the haunted house, coming over to our house, students back and forth. So it's a fun evening, and then everybody gets a late start the next day, and we start school about an hour and a half later than we normally would. So lots of fun and kind of indicative of the types of things that we do all during the course of the year.
Two things that we've done at Indian Mountain School that have helped us to really get to know groups of kids. One is we have dorm dinners at our house. So a dorm at a time will come over and have dinner at the head's house. Students have to answer 3 questions each. I go around and talk with all the kids at the tables. The questions change every year, but it's the same 3 questions for each set of dorms. And it's just a nice opportunity to get to know all the kids. But I think my favorite thing is we started in our first year, the 6th grade boarders, which is usually our smallest group. It's usually somewhere between 6 and 10 students. They come over to our house every Tuesday night, and we have snacks, and sometimes we read stories and we sit by the fire, we play charades. It's a great opportunity to spend time with our youngest boarding students and really make them feel like part of the family.
At Masters, twice a year, we celebrate Founders Day. Our founder, Eliza Masters, in 1877. We talked about the Delta and the Phis, and the whole school is divided into 2 teams, the Deltas and the Phis, and there's a lot of competition during the day, which ends in a tug of war and then a picnic. Before we all head down, we all go in our advisory groups, and each advisory group has a location in New York City. We all take the train down, and we do an evening of community service work. So we work in different shelters. We provide a lot of service to especially the homeless in New York City. So we have a long-standing relationship with many, many sites in the Bronx and in New York City. And then we come back pretty late at night, around 11, and then all head back to our dorms. So it's a wonderful tradition that's been around for a long time.
At Catalina, we, as a Catholic school, celebrated Christmas. And so the girls do this beautiful, we have just an award-winning choir. And so you go into this chapel, welcoming of all faiths, but a beautiful service. And it's really remarkable. I said to the kids, and this is something that boarding schools do, we really listen to our students. Wouldn't you like to come up to the head of school's house? And they had this custom of eating pies. And it was curious to me. I couldn't figure out where that came from or why pie eating. So I talked to the senior prefects, and they're like, oh, Miss Bradley, do not change that tradition. We want to eat the pies. So I went, great. So they come out of Mass and go, day students and boarding students, walk up to the house singing all the way, and we have a big bonfire, and they sing and just have a lovely, lovely time. And those voices are a gift to all the adults as well as to the students.
Kathy, are you on?
There we go. At St. Paul's School, we are all in terms of all being boarding. We're also a 6-day-a-week school, so we have classes on Saturdays that run till noontime. Classes half days on Wednesdays and Saturdays, game days Wednesday and Saturday afternoon. So Saturday evening, in case we haven't had enough togetherness, we host an open house at my home, Rectory Open House. And the star of that show is my 5-year-old Springer Spaniel Breezy, who gives unconditional love to any teenager who wanders in. So whether you want to come in for a quick visit to see and be seen, or whether you want to sit down and play Uno to your heart's content, Rectory Open House is my favorite way of making sure that our kids feel that there's a puppy who's going to be happy to see them some cookies and some good friends by a fire.
one of the two things that I'll mention here at St. Stephen's that we really love. My wife and I and my 3 children host each of the dorms once a year over to the house, and our backyard, the border of our campus butts up against the Colorado River, and we have just these beautiful sunsets in our backyard. And so we have an outdoor fire pit on our deck, and we have each of the dorms over to cook s'mores and just tell stories around the fire pit at sunset. And when I was growing up, the second tradition that I've established here, when I was growing up, my mom used to make me Rice Krispie treats when I had really hard exams to study for. So during the 2 exam periods, my wife had children and I delivered treats to the kids in the dorms. So we walk around in the fall, we deliver chips and queso at about 10:30 at night when they're studying for exams. And in the spring, it's Krispy Kreme donuts. And if you want to get some great time with boarding school students, just show up in their dorms when they're studying late at night with some great snacks, and it's a fun little break for everybody.
Well, what a great way for us to end this webinar. I want to personally thank the panelists for joining us for this last hour and 15 minutes. And everybody who registered for the webinar, thank you for taking the time and giving us your attention. And as I said in the beginning, if this has prompted additional questions, we would certainly be happy to answer them offline outside of this webinar. You will keep our attention and we will help you through this process in any way we can. So thank you all very much and good evening. Have a nice night. Take care.